The night Cristiano Ronaldo silenced Ronaldinho. Some football matches are remembered for trophies. Others are remembered for tactics. But there are rare nights when the game feels like theater, when two artists walk onto the same stage, and only one leaves having rewritten the script. This was one of those nights. The floodlights cut through the cold air above, illuminating a pitch that had hosted decades of legends. The noise inside the stadium wasn't just loud, it was charged with anticipation. Because this wasn't merely a contest between two clubs. It was a collision between two footballing philosophies embodied by two men. On one side stood the joy, improvisation, and samba rhythm that had enchanted the world. On the other stood precision, ambition, and a rising force determined to claim the future. For years, Ronaldinho had been football's smile. That night, Cristiano Ronaldo came to prove the game had a new face. When magic met momentum, to understand the weight of that encounter, you must remember what Ronaldinho represented at the time. Wearing the colors of, he wasn't just winning matches, he was redefining how football felt. He played as if rules were optional. Defenders didn't just lose the ball, they lost balance, confidence, sometimes dignity. Stadiums didn't just applaud, they laughed in disbelief. He had already conquered Europe, already mesmerized crowds, already established himself as football's ultimate entertainer. Meanwhile, Cristiano Ronaldo, still developing but already electric, was becoming the heartbeat of. Where Ronaldinho flowed, Ronaldo accelerated. Where one improvised, the other calculated. It wasn't artistry versus effort. It was artistry versus evolution. The tactical chessboard. The match was part of a tense European battle, the kind that defines seasons in the. Managers knew brilliance could decide everything, so structure mattered as much as inspiration. Barcelona aimed to slow the tempo, allowing Ronaldinho space to dictate rhythm. Manchester United pressed relentlessly, compressing time and space, forcing decisions faster than comfort allowed. And that was where the shift began. Because while Ronaldinho thrived in freedom, Ronaldo thrived in pressure. The moment the atmosphere changed. Early exchanges belonged to Barcelona. Their passes carried that familiar patience, their confidence shaped by recent dominance. Every time Ronaldinho touched the ball, thousands held their breath, waiting for the impossible to happen again. But something unusual unfolded. Instead of chasing the Brazilian, United reshaped around him, cutting angles, closing passing lanes, denying the pauses he needed to create magic. The improviser was being forced into predictability. At the same time, Ronaldo was doing the opposite. He wasn't waiting for the game. He was dragging it forward. Every sprint stretched Barcelona's defense. Every run demanded recovery. Every touch increased urgency. Slowly, almost invisibly, the emotional control of the match shifted. The smile that once defined football was being challenged by something sharper, determination without romance. A goal that felt like a declaration. When the breakthrough came, it did not arrive with circus flair. It came with inevitability. A cross delivered with purpose. A leap timed to perfection. A header struck not just with technique, but with conviction. The net rippled. The stadium exploded. And in that instant, Ronaldo didn't just score a goal, he announced a generational turning point. This was not the football of tricks and spontaneity. This was the football of athletic supremacy meeting relentless ambition. More than a duel between players. It is tempting to describe that night as one man defeating another. But the reality was richer. This was about football changing shape. Ronaldinho symbolized an era where freedom reigned, where players expressed themselves like street performers elevated to global stages. Ronaldo represented the next evolution, the complete athlete, engineered through training, discipline, and psychological intensity. One style invited wonder, the other demanded admiration, and on that night, admiration edged past wonder. The psychological battle. Great matches are decided not only by movement but by mindset. As minutes passed, Ronaldinho searched for spaces that never quite opened. Each attempted dribble met faster resistance. Each glance upfield revealed fewer options. Ronaldo, meanwhile, grew stronger. He pressed harder, ran further, demanded more. You could see it in body language. Barcelona began reacting. Manchester United began dictating. In elite sport, that shift, from expression to survival, is decisive. The crowd is a witness to transition. Supporters inside Old Trafford sensed they were witnessing more than a victory pursuit. They were watching the emergence of a new footballing authority. Cheers followed Ronaldo's defensive work as loudly as his attacks. Every recovery run drew applause. The audience wasn't just celebrating skill, they were celebrating commitment. This was the modern superstar being forged in real time. Not just a talent, a machine of will. The silence of the magician. Ronaldinho was never truly stopped. Players like him cannot be erased entirely. There were still flickers, moments where the ball obeyed only him, where imagination briefly escaped its cage. But the sustained dominance never arrived. The rhythm never belonged to him. And that absence, more than any tackle or interception, was what defined the night. The stage that once amplified his magic had been overtaken by a new protagonist. What the match meant for football's future. Looking back, that encounter now feels symbolic. It foreshadowed a decade where physical preparation became as vital as creativity. Tactical systems grew faster and more compact. Individual brilliance had to coexist with relentless structure. Ronaldo would go on to embody this transformation across leagues and continents, becoming not just a star but a model of longevity and adaptation. Ronaldinho remained timeless, but increasingly representative of a beautiful past rather than the demanding future. Respect between icons. Despite narratives of rivalry, there was never hostility between them, only contrast. One played with joy as his compass. The other played with ambition as his engine. Football needs both. Always has. But history occasionally demands that one era hand the torch to another. That night was one of those moments. Why fans still talk about it? Supporters remember trophies. They remember finals. But they especially remember nights when the emotional direction of the sport seemed to change. This was one of those nights. Because it wasn't just about a scoreline. It was about witnessing the decline of one footballing language, the rise of another. The moment intensity began to rival improvisation as the game's dominant force. The legacy of that evening. Years later, highlights from that match still circulate, not simply as nostalgia, but as evidence of football's evolution. Young players study Ronaldo's movement from that era to understand timing, positioning, and mentality. Coaches reference the match when discussing how to neutralize creative geniuses through collective discipline. And fans, they remember the feeling, the sense that they had watched a hinge moment in football history. Football's endless conversation between art and power. The game has always lived between two ideals. Football as art, football as performance science. Ronaldinho leaned toward the first. Ronaldo mastered the second. That night did not eliminate artistry. It simply showed that modern football was entering an age where beauty had to survive inside intensity. A night that still echoes. In the years since, football has produced countless stars, unforgettable finals, and tactical revolutions. Yet matches like this endure because they tell a human story beneath the competition. It was never just about silencing a player. It was about announcing a rival. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't defeat Ronaldinho. He stepped out of the shadow of enchantment and into the spotlight of inevitability. And football, as it so often does, moved forward, carrying both legacies with it.